Tonight, our presentations will allow for proper information dissemination by our legislative and policy power brokers about plans and projects that are geared towards achieving the developmental objectives in line with the current vision to make Jamaica the place to live, work, invest, raise families, and retire. We will begin, with Prime Minister in Waiting. I said that. The People's Defender, Mr. Mark Jefferson Golding, President of the People's National Party and leader of the opposition of Jamaica.
Thank you very much, Trish. Colleagues on the platform, candidates, former members of parliament, and MPs in waiting, mayors, Kingston, Manchester, officers of the party, ladies and gentlemen, comrades and friends. It's wonderful to be here in Manchester this evening, and this is the second in our series of town halls, as we call them, which are opportunities really for the People's National Party to demonstrate in practice what we mean by participatory democracy and consultation. So we have created these opportunities where citizens like yourselves can come and hear what some of our plans are, and we will get the opportunity to listen to you, your questions and thoughts afterwards, which are very valuable to us and will help us to further develop and refine our own ideas. And this is really how democracy is enriched. Democracy is not just about elections every 5 years, but it's about engaging with people on the issues of national concern or local concern, so that the input of the people, their concerns and their thoughts and their solutions can be brought into account in developing policy and programs which will ultimately be rolled out for their benefit. I am going to talk on a few matters tonight, and you'll be hearing from my three colleagues on some other portfolio areas as well. And I wanted to say something about education, because we are in a situation in Jamaica where, as Peter Bunting has said, low productivity is a problem. And the productivity of our workforce has been in decline for many years. And in fact, since 2007, we've heard that the output per worker has fallen by 21%. And it's very difficult for an economy to grow and for wealth to be created for our people if productivity is falling. And one of the main reasons or causes of low productivity is the underperformance of the education system and the training system of the country. And we know from various studies that the situation that Jamaica finds itself in now is one where at the primary school level, over 30% of our primary school students who leave primary school to enter secondary school cannot read and write, cannot do simple, basic arithmetic, and cannot understand passages written in plain English. So this is a huge problem. It is not that those children are not bright, but they are lacking the benefit of an education system and a wider system of support which enables them to reach their potential. We cannot develop a nation where we're faced with those kind of statistics. So we are very concerned about that, and we have come up with some policy proposals which, for example, we know that investment in early childhood development is a critical element in this, and we intend to look at that very carefully to ensure that basic schools are strengthened and that, if necessary, more of them will become infant schools where the state has a much more critical role in the life of those schools, so that when children are entering the primary school system, there is a better chance that they are ready for the curriculum of primary school. And we know at primary school and secondary school, absenteeism is a big problem. And if you're suffering from learning loss because you're not attending school 5 days a week, that really adds up and creates a deficit in your ability to handle the work and learn what you're supposed to be learning. One of the major causes of absenteeism is the cost to many parents of providing lunch money to their children. And we have said this is unacceptable. A recent UN report published said that Jamaica is suffering from moderate to severe food security at the level of 55% of our people. Of every 100 Jamaicans living in Jamaica, 55 of them are suffering from moderate to severe food insecurity. That means they're not getting the nutrition they need. They're either not eating the necessary number of meals, or what they're eating is not healthy food. So we are going to expand the school feeding program substantially and ensure that every needy child attending primary school or secondary school will get at least one hot, nutritious meal every day. And that is a commitment of the People's National Party. And our intention is to expand that to include breakfast as well, as the economy improves and fiscal space is created. But we are starting with at least one hot, nutritious meal a day. We know that there is another cause of absenteeism, and that is the cost of transportation, especially for rural school children who may have to take bus or taxi, and they don't have a state-subsidized system. Presently, I believe on the path, around 7,500 students benefit from a subsidy on transportation costs. We are going to expand that substantially to 20,000 households will get that benefit for a student every day, and in the form of a weekly subsidy that will go towards reducing the transport costs that they have to bear. And it's going to be a meaningful amount that will substantially cover the cost of going to school and coming back every day of the school week. And we are going to expand that again to the point where we're covering everybody we need to cover as the economy improves. But by starting with 20,000 vis-a-vis what is now on offer, it will be a substantial improvement. We also recognize the importance of tertiary education in terms of offering opportunities for wealth creation for people. And we recognize that in families where they have not had anyone who's attended a tertiary institution, whether it be a university or a college, the chances are that poverty can be handed down from one generation to the next in that scenario. So we have come up with the First in Family program, which is a scholarship that the state will provide to any child, or any student who qualifies for a tertiary institution, whether it be a university or a college, if they are from a household where there has never been a university tertiary graduate before. So if you're going to be the first person from your family to attend university or college, you'll get a full scholarship from the government. And we think this is going to be transformational for those families, because the student who gets that benefit will no doubt enter the job market with the benefit of that, and will be in a position to help their siblings also step up the ladder. And so we see this as a transformational measure in terms of getting people out of the trap of poverty. For Student Loan Bureau, we have a special mix of ideas that we intend to implement. Right now, we know that for many students, especially from low-income houses, there's a lot of concern about borrowing to invest in their education. Because if they end up not getting the job that they were hoping for, and they struggle with the loan payments, what has been happening is that the Student Loan Bureau has been outsourcing to debt collectors to collect on these loans, and they end up sometimes having their name in the newspaper or being harassed by debt collectors. So we want to give some of those students a fresh start And we've said if you're in a situation where you're a student loan borrower and you have found it difficult, you've come into difficulties financially to maintain your payments, we are going to offer you an amnesty, and we're going to waive all past penalties and arrears interest and allow you to bring your loan current, the principal of it, and continue to be on the track from there. But more importantly, going forward, we are going to cap your monthly payments under your loan at a percentage of your actual income, a manageable percentage of your actual income, so that you know that your loan payments, whatever your job may be, will be something that you can manage without having to eat up most of what you're earning to service your loan. And furthermore, if you fall into a period of difficulty, whether it be unemployment, for example, we will allow those payments to be suspended, and for that period until you get back on your feet, and the payments which you have missed will be tacked onto the back end of the loan without penalties or interest, extra interest on that. So this is something what will encourage young people to invest in their education, because the terms of the loan will be designed to make it as user-friendly and borrower-friendly as possible. We are also committed to taking all taxes off of laptops and tablets for students and teachers so that devices are more affordable. And we also want to provide additional support for students with special needs, which is a growing area and an area which is grossly underserved. We need to really put more resources in that area so that the diagnostic tests can be done and we can find out what difficulties there are early and put them on the appropriate pathway to dealing with their condition. So the school feeding program that we have come up with, we're calling it EASE, and the subsidy for rural transportation for students, we're calling that the RIDE program. I'm going to say something about healthcare. And we know that the situation with healthcare in the country is very troubling. In fact, it has reached a point where it's really hurting the economy of the country, because we may be aware that early last year, January, February, the US issued a travel advisory about visiting Jamaica. And for the first time, it wasn't just crime and violence, which has been something they have been focused on for many years, but this time they added worries about the state of the healthcare system and the ability to get access to proper healthcare if you have an accident or fall ill when visiting Jamaica. So healthcare has real economic implications for the country, because since that advisory, the number of visitors coming to Jamaica has been falling, and the revenues of the hotels have been falling. So it's impacting our foreign exchange earnings and the profitability of our hotel sector. And we know, for example, right here in this region, the mortality rate, the maternal mortality rate, that means women who die in childbirth, has gone up, I think, tenfold since we were last in government. And this is something which has not been sufficiently explained as to why this has been happening. And it's been happening under the watch of this government. So we are looking at the issue of healthcare and saying, how can we improve the system? And we know that Jamaica has a real challenge with some non-communicable diseases, in particular cancer, diabetes, which is sugar, and hypertension, which is pressure. And the problem we're having is that many people are not being screened for this. So they have it and they don't know. And we are going to be really focusing on screening our population for these major illnesses so that we can catch them early. Because when you catch them early, especially things like cancer, you have a much better chance of curing it and pushing it into remission and avoiding the big costs and other problems that are incurred where you catch it late. So screening, a national screening program, is going to be a major plank of our approach to healthcare. We intend to also focus on the key facilities that would allow people's interactions with the public health system to be much more pleasant. So we know, for example, that we have numerous operating theaters in Jamaica that are not presently operative because of various minor, relatively minor problems. There's a mold problem at KPH which knocked out many of the operating theaters there, and we know Anato Bay Hospital was without an operating theater recently. I don't know what the current situation is. So we aren't going to refurbish the major operating theaters in each parish, and we're going to have diagnostic equipment in each of the major facilities so that you can come here and come to whichever parish facility you choose, and you will be able to have your condition properly diagnosed, rather than all of these things having to be outsourced to private providers because the equipment is not being maintained in the public health system. We also want to roll out a system of urgent care centers to ease pressure on the major hospitals when it comes to accident and emergency. And this is a well-known way of dealing with emergency matters, accidents and so on, and where you can go to a facility in each parish will have one, and you can address the situation immediately to ensure that life is preserved, the patient is stabilized, and then, if necessary, the patient can then be transported to a hospital for further treatment. And of course, we need to support our medical professionals to encourage them to stay here in Jamaica and not migrate. So we're going to be looking at a variety of ways in which we can support our doctors and our nurses and others, whether it be training opportunities, whether it be housing opportunities, and of course, their remuneration. We're going to be looking at how we can address that as well. And preventive maintenance has to be a real priority for any government going forward. We have so much equipment in the country, medical equipment, which is not working because it has not been properly maintained. Hospital equipment and other infrastructure such as air conditioning units and elevators and so on. Focusing on the things that will keep the equipment functional and make sure that the assets are usable for the lifetime that they were intended by the manufacturers. These are important ways in which we can create a much stronger health system and get better returns for our investments in healthcare. So these are some of the ideas we have in the healthcare area, and we want to ensure that when our citizens go to a public health facility, there are conditions that meet them, and the way in which the experience that they have is one that is not going to undermine their dignity and their confidence in the system. We have a situation currently where too often our people go to a public health system and they can't be admitted because there isn't a bed. They end up having to spend hours or days sitting on a bench or in a wheelchair in a corridor and so on, and many of them don't even survive that indignity, and we are committed to improving that situation. I'm going to say something about housing. And housing is very important because we're faced with a situation here in Jamaica today where there's a huge unfulfilled demand for affordable housing in the country. We have had real estate development over the last 10 years, but the real estate development that has gone on has really been for the benefit of those who are in a position to afford a house that is upwards of the 20s to 30s to $40 million. And many of our people don't have the wherewithal to access houses at those prices. So we estimate that we can, if we're very serious about it and focused, build 50,000 affordable houses over the next 5 years when we're in government. And, you know, we are aware that that would be a significant improvement on what's going on now. The Andrew Holness administration hasn't even built in their period in office 15,000 NHT houses over that period. And so many of our people are priced out of the market. They simply can't afford the $30 million plus houses that the NHT has been building. So how are we going to do this? First of all, we are committed to stopping the annual removal from the NHT of $11.4 billion, which has been going on now for far too long. It started in 2013 as a way that we had to deal with the situation with the IMF at that time. We had committed to doing it so that we could get into an IMF program because it was a very difficult time for Jamaica. The debt of the country was at a much higher level than it is now. And we were committed to doing it for 4 years. At the time, the opposition at the time, the JLP opposition, criticized us heavily for doing that. In fact, an affiliate of theirs brought a court case to try and prevent it happening, but they lost that case. But we were not intending to do it beyond the 4-year period that the law was amended to allow for. They then came to office in 2016, and soon thereafter amended the law to extend that period for another 4 years, and they did it again for another 4 years after that. So what it means is that in the last 10 years, over $130 billion has been taken out of the National Housing Trust to help fund the budget. So when they talk about no new taxes, one of the ways in which they do that is by depleting the National Housing Trust of its resources. We are committed to putting an end to that because we see the National Housing Trust, which was a critical innovation in the 1970s of Michael Manley, as a way of dealing with the housing shortage for persons who need assistance to get a house. So we are also intending to create a fund within the National Housing Trust with the additional resources that it will have of $1 billion per year, which will go towards paying the deposit for a first-time home buyer. And we're looking really at targeting younger people for this, up to 35 years old, who have been contributors to the fund for up to 2 years, at least 2 years. They will be eligible, if it's their first home they're buying, to draw down under that fund and get a $500,000 grant to help them cover the deposit, which is a major issue for many first-time buyers. We also have come up with an innovation that we call rent to own. And we are aware that many people who make their money through a little business, a little hustling, or maybe they're working for somebody, but that is not a very well-established business that they're working in. They don't get a pay slip, a formal pay slip, every time they get paid. And they are not, therefore, in a position to prove their income so as to qualify for an HT loan. And we have said, hold on, that affects so many people, we have to have a proper solution for that. And so what we've said is, we will allow persons in that situation to go into possession of the home as a tenant initially, at a level of rental which is equivalent to what the mortgage would be. And if they are able to make, and do make, their monthly payments on a time, for a period of time that we feel is sufficient to show that they can service a loan, and we are thinking of 6 months, at that point we would say they've proved their income without the pay slip. And they can then draw down on the mortgage, become an owner of the property, and move forward on the ownership ladder. We also want to offer persons who are purchasing a home using NHT funding, we want to offer them an opportunity for a 3-month moratorium after they draw down on the mortgage, because we know that currently they have to start making payments right away. But for many people, when they buy a house, they have other expenses and they need a little time, for example, to furnish the house and so on. So we're going to give a 3-month moratorium period before they start to make their payments. And I think this will be much appreciated by anyone who is drawing down a mortgage to buy a house. And very importantly, because of all the money that has been taken out of the NHT over the years, last 10 years in particular, we are going to identify public lands that are suitable for housing, not arable lands, lands that are suitable for housing. and we're going to make them available to the NHD for development. And when those houses are being built and sold, we will not put the value of the land in the price of the house, so that a buyer can just pay for the house at the cost of the building the house without the land value being part of it. And that will provide a significant saving for the purchase of the house. In some instances, up to $3 million by our estimate. And right here in Manchester, Senator Floyd Morris has assured me that he's been in touch with our MP and MP candidates, and we know that every constituency in this parish will receive at least 500 of these low-income houses over the next 5 years. Yeah. MP Michael Phillips has identified some lands where reclaimed bauxite lands that can be used for agriculture and housing developments in Northwest and others and so on. So we're really looking at the specifics now, and we're not waiting to form government before we get this ready. And we have another program, we call it Porsche, which is an acronym for a lot of words. But essentially what the Porsche program is about is focusing on communities that need renewal, whether it be urban communities or rural communities, including informal settlements. And we will be looking at, first of all, completing all the Operation Pride schemes across the country that have been left unattended, and people are living there. We want to complete infrastructure if the infrastructure is incomplete, and complete the titling process so that they can become owners of those lots. And there are many very successful Operation Pride schemes. I visited several of them, and some of those, the houses that have been built there are wonderful, but there are others where there are still infrastructure needs that need to be addressed, and we intend to do that. But we'll also be tearing down zinc fences and building concrete walls and chain link fences, and we'll be improving sidewalks for senior citizens and persons with disabilities. And ladies and gentlemen, another area that I want to touch on quickly relates to values and attitudes and the moral compass of the nation. We have seen such a deterioration in that over the years, and it's manifested in some of these horrible things we hear about almost every day in Jamaica. We hear about students, females going missing and killed. We hear about little girls being raped and murdered. We hear about a nurse being beaten up on the public road in a most disgraceful manner. And then we really need to get back to a place where we show each other respect and love. And so I intend to promote a movement that will be led by civil society and the churches and any other well-thinking Jamaicans who believe that this is an important issue, where we're going to be promoting the kind of behaviors and attitudes towards each other that can make us a more loving country, a more caring country, a country where people want to stay and to live. And we believe this is very important, because if we continue down the road that we're on now, we're going to, each of us will be increasingly traumatized by what we come across and hear of the depravities on a daily basis. And all of this requires leadership in public life. And I am committed to strengthening the agencies that are there to root out corruption in the country. The Integrity Commission in particular, which is under attack from this government. We are fully supportive of it. We only ask of them that they operate in a proper and ethical manner themselves, and that they follow due process in how they deal with people. But we intend to fully resource them as they need to be, and give them the necessary legal tools if there are any changes that need to be made to the law. We do not countenance a situation in which the leaders of the country are under a cloud when it comes to matters to do with corruption. To my mind, the situation that now exists in Jamaica, where the Prime Minister of the country can't have his integrity declarations certified because there are unanswered questions about how he acquired the wealth that he has, and where that matter is being referred, or has been referred, to the FID, the Financial Investigations Division, which is the the financial crimes investigative arm of government, which is being depleted of resources as we speak, no doubt because it suits some of them not to have a robust agency. We are dead against that. We feel that really is a disqualifying factor from anybody seeking to represent people in public life. And Jamaica needs to get to the place where we don't allow that sort of thing to taint our public affairs. And we are committed, and I am committed to leading a government which is above board, where hanky-panky is not tolerated, and where our members of our government understand that they will, if they're slip them slide, and there will be consequences. All of our shadow spokespersons in the Senate, in the House of Representatives, and those who are not in Parliament have signed the Integrity Commission's Code of Conduct for Leaders. All of us have signed that Leadership Code of Conduct. Not one of the JLP MPs or senators has signed it. Why, I don't know. It embraces the 7 principles of good governance, which are international benchmarks and standards for running affairs of people properly, and yet they haven't signed it. So they're not really on the right path at all. And the country needs to get a new government which is embracing wholesome values and attitudes, which doesn't have this cloud of corruption, nepotism, and cronyism hang over it, whether it be a drill or whether it be fertilizer, which was given to the country by the Kingdom of Morocco for our farmers who needed the fertilizer. And then cronies and connected persons are selling it to the farmers who are in distress. This kind of thing is disgraceful, and we can't continue like this as a country. So I say to you, the majority of Jamaicans believe that our country is heading in the wrong direction, and we must change course, not with blame or derision, but with vision and will. Let us build a Jamaica that is just, that is prosperous, and united. Our party has taken principled positions on matters to defend the Constitution in the interest of the people of our country, and the courts have ruled over and over again in our favor. And you can rest assured that we will uphold and defend the Constitution, the rights and freedoms of our people, whatever may come, because that is what we're sworn to do. So, ladies and gentlemen, tonight is one stop on a national journey, and you will get the chance to share your voice and your vision, and let's build this country together, a Jamaica where everyone matters and no one is left behind. I thank you.
Well, now you know why we're the better team. Because we have the better leader.